Conversation around funding EMS services continues in Maine. Rural communities are feeling the brunt of the issue and facing the worst case scenario. Sierra Whaley has more.
When people dial 911 for an emergency, they expect help to come. However, with increasing demand and decreasing resources and staff, not every call can be reached.
We have cases that are happening all over the state of Maine where there are delays in EMS response. And we even have cases where callers are being told by 911 dispatchers that I don't have an ambulance immediately available.
That was the case in Maquahawk recently when an emergency call went out. After going through multiple municipalities and being told nobody was available to respond, a nonprofit EMS company out of Hudson made it there after traveling over an hour after finishing another call. By the time help arrived, it was too late. The patient was dead.
A town or a political subdivision could, in fact, not have a plan in place.
And as of right now, they're not required to. The last legislature passed a law that declared EMS an essential service. However, nobody is held accountable under the law. Departments can refuse to respond to calls if they're tied up, and there's no contract in place for the town to pay for those services, all while the cost of one ambulance trip has skyrocketed.
The legislature and the federal government have made the cost of operating ambulances skyrocket because they keep making more rules.
Petrie says this isn't a matter that's easy on EMS staff.
EMS services every day agonize over what do we need to do to be able to respond, because that is what drives us.
This matter is also in the hands of the general public. While there's no law in Maine requiring municipalities to provide EMS services to communities, it can change.
You should be standing up at your town council meetings, your whatever meetings are going on, and banging on the table and say, what is our plan for emergency medical response?
Sierra Whaley, WABI News, Bangor.
State Representative Tracy Quint of Hodgdon released a statement on the passing of the patient. She says she and her colleagues are committed to addressing this tragedy, and she has reached out to the family, praying that another family will not have to experience such a devastating loss.